Good day, my awesome grade 11 student. Welcome to our new normal learning delivery or video lesson in applied economics. This video lesson is prepared for you to facilitate in helping you to meet your learning needs while overcoming your personal, social, and economic constraints in schooling. I hope that you all engage in this activity at your own pace and time. Furthermore, this will also help you acquire the needed 21st century skills while taking into consideration your needs and circumstances. I am your subject teacher, Ma'am Marilyn. Before we go to the lesson, let's offer a short prayer. Our loving and generous God, we praise and thank you for the bountiful blessings you have given us. Thank you for giving us mind that can know and heart that can love. Thank you for giving us the chance to continue learning amidst the pandemic that had caused a lot of changes in our lives. We are sorry for the times we have failed you. We humbly ask for your forgiveness. Father, help us stay focused on our studies. When learning becomes difficult, grant us the gift of courage and enthusiasm. Grant us the grace to use our knowledge in making a difference into the lives of the people around us. All this we pray in your mighty name. Amen. Okay, to begin with, let's warm up and check what you have learned about the previous lesson. You will just choose the letter of the correct answer. The De La Cruz family cannot afford to buy basic necessities like food and medicine. A. Population. B. Poverty. C. Infrastructure. D. Technology. Good job. The answer is B. The government allotted 10 million pesos for the purchase of modern machineries in farming. A. Infrastructure. B. Technology. C. Poverty. D. Population. Very good, class. You got the right answer. Filipino scientists invented machines to make work faster and easier. A. Human resource development. B. Poverty. C. Population. D. Technology. Wow, excellent! The number of Filipino as of January 2020 is more than 100 million. A. Technology. B. Infrastructure. C. Population. D. Poverty. Excellent! Yes, great job! You got all the answers correct. I'm proud and happy to say that you all learned on our previous lesson. And now, you are ready to learn the new lesson. So, our topic for today is how to analyze market demand, market supply, and market equilibrium. So let us now proceed to our objective for today's lesson. Number 1. Define terms related to market demand, market supply, and market equilibrium. Number 2. Find how market demand curve is being derived. Number 3. Identify the slope of market demand curve. Number 4. Find how market supply curve is being derived. Number 5. Identify the slope of market demand curve. And number 6. Find the equilibrium of perfectly competitive market. Now, let's check what you already know about the lesson to take. Choose the letter that corresponds to your answer. Number 1. What is market demand? A. Household demands. B. The sum of all individual demand. C. The number of items a person is willing to buy. And letter D. The collection of all the product a person is willing to sell. Correct. Answer is letter B. What is market supply? A. The firm's supply. B. The sum of all individual supply. Letter C. The number of items a firm is willing to sell. Letter D. The collection of all the product a person is willing to buy. The answer is letter C. In a market demand, what is its slope? A. Upward. B. Downward. C. Horizontal. D. Vertical. Answer is letter B. Downward. In a market where there are two households who has demands of 3 and 5 chocolate bars respectively, how many is their market demands in total? Letter A 6, letter B 7, letter C 8, letter D 9. Answer is C 8. Which of the following curves best illustrates a market demand curves? Yes, the correct answer is A. Which of the following curves best illustrates a market supply? Correct, letter B. Which of the following curves best illustrates market equilibrium? Answer is letter C. Which of the following law describes the behavior of people wherein price increases, the quantity of products people buy tends to lessen, and when price decreases, the quantity of products people buy tends to increase? A. Law of supply. B. Law of demand. C. Law of diminishing marginal utility. D. Law of nature. Answer is B. Law of demand. It is a point in a curve where the demand and supply meet or intersect. A. Equilibrium. B. Demand. C. Supply. D. Origin. Answer is A. What do you call the individual sellers in the market? A. Household. B. Customer. C. Supply. D. Firm. Yes, letter A. Household. Yes, you got all the answers correct. Great job, my dear student. Have you ever wondered how does the market come up with a particular price for a particular item or product? In this lesson, you will be learning on how to analyze how market demand and market supply influence present market price, also known as equilibrium price. Let's take and see a short video about supply and demand relationship and how does it affect the consumers and the suppliers' behavior as well as the price of the product. Let's watch a short video about supply and demand relationship and how does it affect the consumer and the supplier behavior as well as the price of the product. How much are you willing to pay to get the video game? And what would you do if the price of your favorite pizza shop increased? Every day, people ask questions relating to the concept of supply and demand. Demand is the desire consumers have for a good or service. The more people who wanted the good and service, the higher the demand for it. Supply is the total amount of good or service available for consumption. The higher the amount of good and service produced and made available to consumer, the larger the supply it would be. Supply and demand had a big impact for the prices of product and service. Consider what happened with bananas. Now, there are few bananas in the shelves, but there are many people are waiting to purchase. The demand for bananas is higher than the supply of bananas because there are more people wanting them than there are more bananas available at the market. Knowing this, the banana producer may increase the price of the bananas because they know that the higher demand, many consumers are willing to pay more to get what they want. Some consumer will decide to leave further purchasing bananas because they are not willing to pay the higher price. What will happen if we added another producers in the situation? So, there are two banana sellers to choose from. The demand for bananas would be lower than the supply because there will be more bananas available than consumers want. The banana producer may decrease the price of the banana to entice more consumers to buy their product, thus increasing the demand for bananas. Understanding the supply and demand is key to understanding our own purchasing behavior as well as the way business work. Do you love eating chocolates? If you are given the chance to buy chocolates, how many chocolates are you willing to buy? Given a particular prices. We begin the chapter with the individual demand curve, sometimes also called the household demand curve. That is based on the individual's choice among different goods. In this chapter, we use the term individual and household interchangeably. We show how to build the market demand curve from the individual demand curves. Then, we do the same thing for supply curve, showing how to build market supply from the supply curves of the individual firms. Finally, we put them together to obtain the market equilibrium. The activity is an example of how we can obtain the individual demand curve. How does the market come up with one price for a particular product? In this lesson, Market demand, market supply will be analyzed to understand how price, also known as equilibrium price, is derived. The activity above is an example of a demand curve for chocolate bars of a particular household. For a more concrete example, below is a demand schedule and a demand curve of chocolates for Ella. Taking the price of a chocolate bar as given, Ella decides how many chocolate bars to buy. Her choice is represented as a point on the household demand curve. For example, at 5 pesos, Ella wishes to consume 5 chocolate bars each month. If the price decreases to 3 pesos, Ella buys 8 bars every month. In other words, the quantity demanded by Ella increases. Equally, if the price of a chocolate bar increases, the quantity demanded decreases. This is the law of demand in operation. Always remember that the household demand curve shows the quantity of chocolate bars demanded by an individual household at each price. It has a negative slope. Higher the price, lead people to consume fewer chocolate bars. In most markets, many households purchase the good or the service traded. We need to add together all the demand curves of the individual household to obtain the market demand curve. To see how this works, take at the demand curve and the schedule as an example. Because the individual demand curve are downward sloping, the market demand curve is also downward sloping. The law of demand carries across to the market demand curve. As the price decreases, each household chooses to buy more of the product. Thus, the quantity demanded increases as the price decreases. Although we use 2 households in this example, the same idea applies if there are 20,000 households. In principle, we could add together the quantities demanded at each price and arrive at a market demand curve. Take note that the market demand is obtained by adding together the individual demands of all the households in the economy. Inside a market, aside from those people who are buying the product, whom we call household, we also have those that what we call firms, the ones who actually produces and sells the product. Inside the market, for us to be able to come up with a price, taking into consideration of 2 sides, firm and household is much needed. Take an illustration as an example. A firm supply curve shows the quantity of chocolate bars it is willing to supply at each price. In our example, the firm supplies 7 chocolate bars at 3 pesos and 8 chocolate bars at 5 pesos. Just as the market demand curve tells us the total amount demanded at each price, the market supply curve tells us the total amount supplied at each price. It is obtained analogously to the market demand curve. At each price, we add together the quantity supplied by each firm to obtain the total quantity supplied at that price. If we perform this calculation for every price, then we get the market supply curve. Note that the market supply is obtained by adding together the individual supplies of all the firms in the economy. Now we go to the market equilibrium. For us to obtain the market equilibrium, we combine the market demand and supply curves. The point where the curves cross is the market equilibrium. At this point, there is a perfect match between the amount that buyers want to buy and the amount that sellers want to sell. The term equilibrium refers to the balancing of the forces of supply and demand in the market. At the equilibrium price, the suppliers of a good can sell as much as they wish, and demanders of a good can buy as much of the good as they wish. There are no disappointed buyers or sellers. Note that the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity are determined by the intersection of the supply and demand curves. Because the demand curve has a negative slope and the supply curves has a positive slope, supply and demand will cross once. Both the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity will be positive. The illustration shows an example of market equilibrium with market supply and market demand at 4 different prices. The equilibrium occurs at 10 pesos and a quantity of 50 units. To make you solidify your understanding and skills of the topic being discussed, find the market demand of the following individual demand and draw the market demand curve. You'll have 1 minute to analyze the demand schedule given. Let's see the correct answer and you can compare your answers too. If you got the same answers, you did a great job. As you can see, the result of the market demand curve has a negative slope and they both lies of the same price at 7 pesos, which is known as equilibrium price. If you got the same result, how impressive you are! Now, let's go to the next activity. You may read the following items and fill in the blanks with the correct answer. Number 1. As price increases, quantity demanded will blank, and if price decreases, quantity demanded will blank, based on the law of demand. Yes, you're right. Number 2. The slope of the demand curve is always blank sloping. Very good. Number 3. The market supply and demand can be obtained by blank, the household's demand, for the market demand, and a blank, the individual supply of firms, for the market supply. Correct. Number 4. The equilibrium price and quantity is the part where the demand and supply is blank. Impressive! The term blank refers to the balancing of the forces of supply and demand in the market. Correct again. I'm impressed of all what you did in all the activities. That means that you learned a lot in this topic. For that, here are a round of applause. We are now on the last part of our lesson. This will be given to you to enrich your knowledge and skill of the lesson learned. This also tends retention of learned concept. And be sure to submit your assignment on time. The hand is one of the most symbolized part of the human body. It is often used to depict skill, action, and purpose. Through our hands, we may learn, create, and accomplish. Hence, the hand in this learning resource signifies that you as a learner is capable and empowered to successfully achieve the relevant competencies and skills at your own pace and time. Your academic success lies in your hand. Once again, I'm your subject teacher, Marilyn de Vera.